Good to be back.
We're back.
And this Monday we talk about Law 35 from the 48 Laws of Power. So let's hear it. Law 35. Master the art of timing. Never seem to be in a hurry. Hurrying betrays a lack of control over yourself and over time. Always seem patient, as if you know that everything will come to you eventually. Become a detective of the right moment. Sniff out the spirit of the times, the trends that will carry you to power. Learn to stand back when the time is not yet ripe, and to strike fiercely when it has reached fruition. So Law 35 is master the art of timing. And from the most punctual person that I know, why don't you go ahead and open this law up?
I like it. I like it a lot because in order to do this, you need one key ingredient, which I've been working on for all my life, and I'm still having to work on, and I haven't perfected it at all, and I'm far from it, and
Patience.
that is patience.
I already know.
Patience, because if you get into the law under the different sections that Robert Greene's got,
Mm-hmm.
He breaks it down even
Right.
further. He
breaks
talks
time
about
down.
the long time, the medium play, and the quick snap short time. And unfortunately, I fall under the quick snap kind of thing. Although in some of the purchases of agencies, I knew that things could not happen overnight, so I always just dropped the seat. But that was later on in my life, as I got older and supposedly wiser, because we already established that getting old doesn't mean that you acquire wisdom. Wisdom is acquired by being a student of life every day and learning something every day. And then hopefully you get a little wisdom. But the agencies that I have purchased never came overnight. It was just, you dropped a little seed here. Hey, if you're ever interested, I'd be interested in looking at your numbers. I'm interested in buying, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
But it never happened. But, I like where he says, be a detective of the moment. How was that he said?
He says to sniff out. He says
be a detective of the right moment.
And sniff out the spirit of the times, the trends that will carry you to power.
There you go, man.
So,
wow.
I don't know, when I see that, when I read that phrase right there, I'm thinking of like, it's almost like a ping pong match or a tennis match. You're going back and forth and back and forth, and the trends, and then on one of those, let's say you give them what is it? The most powerful is a front hand or a backhand? Backhand, right? Serve.
It depends. I'm not thinking of ping. I'm thinking I used to play racquetball.
So in racquetball, what is your strongest?
Mine is a forehand.
Oh, it's the forehand. Okay.
But I played people that had a backhand that was to kill for.
So I guess it depends the person.
Oh, it does. I mean, you throw a ball to their backhand, they have it down. They twist their body.
Oof.
It's a twist, and it's also in the wrist, and those balls go 109 miles an hour.
Racquetballs.
Yeah.
So you're going back and forth, and then on one of those you kill.
Yeah.
On one of those you go for the kill.
Right.
And that's the game. And Robert Greene talks about Joseph Fouché.
Yes.
The Frenchman.
He's amazing.
Which I don't think I've ever met an individual like this, and if I have, I didn't notice that they were like this. But this individual, Joseph Fouché, is to me the best player of manipulation and of knowing when to be on the right side.
For sure.
And that's the thing that I found very interesting, because I was thinking, like, in life, have I come across Law 35? And I personally couldn't think of a moment that I had encountered. I mean, yes, timing, yes, the long game. I've been in situations also where following up paid off years later.
Right, right.
But an individual, or maybe a company, but an individual that knew when to switch sides. And I thought of the movie Braveheart, which we love. Spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen it. But on the battlefield, when William Wallace chases down that one guy on the horse, and they get to the ground, and William Wallace, this was his last attempt to do anything, because they had lost that battle, and this person that he unmasks, takes the helmet off, was the nobleman who had told him that he would be there to fight with William Wallace and his people.
And he was fighting against him.
And you didn't even have to kill William Wallace at that point. All the life was taken from his face. I know it's a movie.
No, but that scene is tremendous.
It's an extremely powerful scene, and even the nobleman, you see it in his face, the face of...
They're both great actors, man.
The guilt he betrayed. And that's one thing Robert Greene doesn't talk about betrayal here. He's only talking about
playing the game,
and the person that Joseph Fouché, that he used as an example, which I had never heard of prior to this, who played it so perfectly. But what about all the people that he betrayed and backstabbed?
Well, Joseph Fouché put a lot of people to the guillotine. So there were a lot of people that died because they were his. That's right.
Under his command.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he was first a moderate, and then he became a radical. And under the radical is Robert Greene says that he was the last vote casted to cut Louis XVI's head. So.
But he knew when to switch, because that's the thing about this individual. So, anyways, I couldn't think of somebody or a situation, so I just thought of that scene in Braveheart where...
That's wonderful.
The guy, I said, I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to fight alongside you, and then I betray you. Now, sometimes maybe, William, you never have that moment where you realize you were betrayed. Or what is it, et tu, Brutus?
Oh, well, or it's way at the end. It's
at the
too
very
late
end
for you to do anything.
Right. But it occurs many times in history and many times in life where people will switch sides, whether it's in politics or
corporate
ideas in corporate. They'll turn you in faster than,
Absolutely.
you can blink.
How many times do you hear you're in a corporate setting and they're, cutting back and they're saying, hey, look, I'm sorry, I got to let you go. It's not personal, it's business. Well,
Yeah.
So, in corporate, it happens a lot.
Yeah, and one thing that at the end of the day, and I talk about it often, I mention it, that everybody's really just looking for their self-interest.
Of course.
There are some people that are not like that. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking to protect themselves, their position, their family, their lifestyle.
You have to feed your family.
So they will do whatever it takes. Desperate people do desperate things.
Yes, and I used to work for a Fortune 500 insurance company, and I saw, you can apply this law in different areas, right, or to different degrees, but I saw people being passed up for promotions. Okay? Yeah. And why? They were very good. They had been with the company a long time. They were producing numbers, but they weren't mixing with the right crowd. Okay? Yeah. And they were...
The networking piece.
The networking piece within
what is
that
it called?
Corporate
Rubbing
ladder.
shoulders,
Rubbing shoulders with... So, I saw good people. I can think of two right now. Yeah. Okay? They were excellent managers. They should have been promoted, and they weren't promoted. They were passed up, and somebody else got promoted, but not them. And when you look at them, they were more the quiet type of individual, the individual that would get their work done, do their work well. They would be the ones that come in first and leave later. But they were more on the quiet side. They weren't not obnoxious, but exuberant. When they did something good that they got credit, they said thank you very much. But they didn't try to strategically figure out how to push that forward. They were just good men, okay? And it doesn't seem fair because these people were passed up.
Oh, that's the thing. Just good men. In life, you want to be a good man, but in the corporate setting, you need to play your cards to be able to move up.
Yeah. And I saw that. And it was frustrating for them. And one of them ended up leaving management and becoming an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And there was more money to be made.
More independence.
As an agent than as manager. And management was tied into bonuses and this, and they suck the blood out of you. As an agent, too, if you're not careful. We're in the sales business. And so that's...
Well, in sales, timing is so important.
Oh.
But just the character, and why don't we talk a little bit about this character? Because, I think we can learn a lot from Joseph Fouché. Because
he was like a chameleon. Depending on the tree that he jumped on,
but he
changed colors to match the tree.
Correct. But many times a trader gets killed. He escaped death so many times because he knew when to jump. And that's the thing that I find so interesting about this individual. To me, this is probably the most complex law of all the laws, definitely up to Law 35. This is the most complex law because how do you know when to jump? We're talking about he knew when to side with Napoleon. He knew when to side with the king. He knew when Napoleon was on his downfall and he started to conspire with other people to get, to take power over Napoleon. But even then, when Napoleon came back to power from exile, he was so good at what he did
that Napoleon named him.
Napoleon brought him back.
Sure.
Even after knowing it was an individual that you knew this person cannot be trusted, but they're so good at what they do, and he was a spy. Essentially, he was in charge of a spy network. Later on, he was assigned. His position, Joseph Fouché, was a French statesman, revolutionary at first, and then switch. He kept switching. It's like going from Democrat to Republican, Democrat, Republican, and then he would. And one of the things that he said was, it's not in a revolution. It's not being on the side of the revolution. It's the one who wins the revolution is the one who ends it.
Right.
So he knew that he would start on the side of the revolutionaries, but they weren't going to win at the end in the long game. He needed to jump ship, and that's what I find fascinating. Is he knew how to do it.
How does he know? How does he know? Look, he started off as a seminary teaching math to young kids.
Yeah.
At one point, it's alluded that he was going to become a priest, but he never became a priest.
No, he didn't commit to that.
Right. And then when the revolution came, he just put down his priesthood and he
decided to be
revolutionary his hair and become a revolutionary.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I think it takes someone with a worldly view and someone who really, really is really good at depicting human nature and how we react to things.
But how do you know which side's gonna win?
He had a gift, and
he knew that the moderates, he would switch from the moderates to the Jacobins, and the Jacobins were the revolutionary group, and the moderates were the I guess the more moderate
Yeah.
group, and then you had the kings, right? And so he knew when to switch. And there was a time where he started as a revolutionary, and then he had to betray that person that started the revolution. I don't have his name off the top.
You know, it's you just have to be aware of your surroundings, and even that is not enough.
No, but these are individuals that.
Well, I'm talking about within a corporation, like a Fortune 500 company, okay? Like, let's say a major law firm. You can see who's the up and coming attorneys and who are not.
Yeah.
And you've got so many factors to play into the program. You know, you've got age, if they're getting older in age, if the youngers are really, really bright, this and that. Because you could pick a side with someone that, let's say it is the general counsel or a general partner for the firm. That person is a little bit older, and then all of a sudden, what happens if that person has some kind of a health situation, needs to step down?
You need to be able to
now,
move quickly.
But if you had committed to that person and you did things on behalf of that person,
right?
Now that person that protected you is gone. Now you got somebody else coming on board, and what's going to happen there? That's why you see all these presidential, when the president takes over,
yeah,
there's the replacement of the.
A lot of people.
A lot of people get displaced.
Clean house,
because they're bringing in their own people.
But some of these politicians are able to, hey, even during the debates or whatever, we went at each other, but now,
Well, it's my understanding Henry Kissinger stayed for like 4 presidents or something.
Wow. Yeah, see, so that's somebody that wasn't tied to, let's say, one party.
Correct. And when Watergate came down, Kissinger's name was never around there. And yet he was the right-hand man to
Nixon.
Right. And
Wow.
Nixon got impeached. He got thrown out. So there are people that, you know what? They're slippery, like soap.
Yeah.
And
You can't quite catch them.
No, they're brilliant, Mike. They're brilliant. They're very intelligent.
So the actual title of Joseph Fouché was Napoleon's Minister of Police.
Minister of Police, yeah.
Which then created a secret police force. He became the Duke of Trente in 1809. But Joseph Fouché actually created a spy network that even began to spy on Napoleon.
Right.
And so they were keeping secrets. And then when he was taken out of that position, he took all of the documents that they had in their files and everything of the information on these individuals and took them out. So like, okay, you removed me from this position, but they didn't kill him. And even though they tried to kill him, he was able to find ways to get out of those situations by extending. Basically, there was one time they showed up to his house.
Right.
And he says, May
I change clothing?
May I change clothing the last time?
The minister of police should not be, held accountable.
The last time I leave this home or whatever the case, may I change?
And he escaped
through a ladder
in
the bathroom or something like that.
Right, onto the garden.
But he knew, so and the time that you're referring to, the 3 types of time, there was long time, forced time, and end time.
Correct.
So long time, you need patience, which is something that we're both working on.
Yeah.
You need to not react impulsively. Some people, this is quote unquote, from Robert Greene, quote, some mistake action for power. Real quick, I'll say something on that. I remember one time I came to you because somebody who was my competitor in business went behind my back and tried to take business from me from a very powerful referral source. And I mentioned it to you, and I remember you saying you should address this with the guy. And then I remember, and I'm not saying that was the wrong choice or right choice, but I remember I decided, you know what, I'm not going to. I know what he did. He went behind my back. And we were supposed to be colleagues and quote unquote friends.
Well, you were friends.
We were acquaintances.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hung out.
Yeah.
But the guy went behind my
Behind
back,
your back.
and I never addressed it with him, but I always knew that's the type of individual that this is. I don't need them to know that I know that.
Okay, I think moving forward and being where we are today, I think that was the wisest move. Because I told you in the best of intentions, you should address it with the guy. Because if he's your buddy, how on earth is he doing something like that?
Right.
Confronting him at that time, thinking back, might not have been the best move. Because you already knew that he wasn't your friend.
Correct.
He didn't necessarily know that you knew that he backstabbed you.
Correct. And I thought, this is like chess, and I'm not going to address it. And I never did.
You never did?
But some mistake...
You never went back and addressed it with him?
No.
I think that's shows a lot of character. And endurance, and it's. I think it was a wise move, looking back.
That's the thing. Not everything deserves a reaction.
Right.
And I think that's just moving forward. All of us, we can apply that. Like some mistake action for power. Not all action is power.
Well, I don't agree with that totally, because if you're being this was something that was in between a couple of offices, but you were working with 15 offices. If all 15 offices
not at that time. I was just starting at that time.
Okay, well, here's my point.
So it was like, let's say I had 2 sources of income, it was attacking one of them.
Yeah, but a big source of income.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. It was
okay. Well, you can't receive an attack like that and if anybody else in the world knows about it, then you're a pushover. And then everybody's going to go gunning for your sources.
Maybe.
Not just him, but the other. You guys were several agents. So at some point, you have to put your foot down and confront.
At some point.
But you chose not to.
In that situation.
Okay.
It doesn't mean in any situation, but in that situation.
So what do you tell our viewers?
Well, what I'm telling you, you need to figure...
do you not? Let's say one of our viewers is in a situation where something similar is happening, where somebody that's an acquaintance goes behind his back or her back and tries to take a source of income. When you're trying to take a source of income from someone, you're taking food out of the table that feeds the family.
They did not take the source of income, and I had protected that source of income to a point where I had an established relationship. So even though it was a threat, they didn't replace me. They didn't take that income away from me. It was just an attack on it. And so you could either attack it or you could see how things play out. And I just chose to see how things play out. Each person's situation's so individual.
So in this case, if I got you right, I remember the situation, but so he wasn't successful in taking your referrals.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But he did something that, backstabbed, and I never addressed it with him.
Okay.
So that's something that you need to choose. That was the long game. The second one is the forced time. Short time that we can manipulate as an offensive weapon, upsetting the timing of our opponent. So forced time means I can force you to make a decision right now before you leave this table. You need to decide whether you're with me or not with me. And all of your plans just go out the window because you have to decide before you leave.
Well, I did that once.
Okay.
Where I made an offer on an agency. And it was a very good offer, okay, for the seller. And the seller came back and said, you know what, I really like your offer, Pablo, but I'm still going to put it on the open market. And right there and there, I told that seller, okay, if you want to put it on the open market, then I am retracting my offer at this moment. My offer is no longer good because I will not get involved in a competitive bidding war. I'm interested in your business and I'm very serious, and you see this is a very, very fair offer because I want it. In fact, I was paying a premium for it. But when he said, I'm still going to put it on the market, I said, fine. I retract my offer immediately. Okay? You take your chances with the market. Don't come back to me. I'm gone. I will look for other horizons. Okay? And I remember that he said, oh, okay. No. That's fair enough. I'll take your offer. We'll sign contracts.
Was it immediately the response?
Right there. He said, right there. And you know where we were? It wasn't a fancy place. He wanted to meet at a McDonald's. We were at a McDonald's having McDonald's coffee. And
Hey, a lot of business gets done at McDonald's.
And a lot of business gets done on the golf course.
Yeah.
I have one of my dearest friends. He's always tried to get me to play golf because he made a lot of business deals on the golf course. And golf is just not my thing.
So
coffee is my thing, but we were having coffee at a McDonald's.
So
but I
you
will
were
never
able
forget
to,
it.
You were able to stop that from happening.
Right.
By using forced time, by saying you got to make a decision.
And I'll tell you what, Mike, I was shaking when I told him that because I really wanted to buy that business. And had he said no, it would have affected moving forward big time. Because I had other ideas of what to do with that. And I was shaking in my boots. And I remember shaking. And I remember throughout that day, so I ended up getting, I put a super speed limit on the contract so that the contracts could get done right away. Because we were on a handshake, and he was a man of honor, and I knew he wasn't going to back up, but the sooner we signed the contract, the better. So
that's a great example of forced time.
I'll never forget it.
Making people wait is a powerful way of forcing time. As long as they do not figure out what you are up to, you control the clock. It makes me think of like a doctor's office. They make you wait.
Yeah.
And then you walk in there and you think, that this must be very important because I waited an hour before I got in here. You mess with their timing. It's kind of like, if you look at Ronaldinho was very good at this, the soccer player. He would go from like slow dribbling of the soccer ball to explosive speed, and people couldn't get his rhythm. They were thrown off. You think as a defender, like I can guard this guy, but he would just choo. So he was controlling the clock. The third type of time that Robert Greene brings up is end time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when a plan must be executed with speed and force. And I think you're really good at this one, especially because, I know you said a long time is something you can work on. So can I, on patience. But end time, when a plan must be executed, you're very quick at pulling the trigger. And actually, prior to this podcast, we were talking about a few individuals that we've taken an investment opportunity to. And some of them are very few. There was one person in particular, maybe two, that was very good at making a decision immediately and pulling the trigger and saying, look, this is what it is for me. It makes sense for me, this investment, if we can adjust these things.
Right.
And then some other people don't get back to us. Some other people take their time. But this is something that the longer time you take, the less interested we are in you taking the investment opportunity, because we're looking for speed and somebody who's serious, right? We're talking about a real estate investment. So I like individuals personally in business and in life that when a plan needs to be executed, they do it with speed and force.
Well, it's the difference between getting to the top of the mountain and reaching halfway up the top. It's you need to execute. That's the whole difference between everything. There's a lot of people that, because this was, you need a little bit of time to figure out if it's something that you want to do. But the people that are in business and they are professionals and are doing this day in and day out, they can spot the opportunity quickly. Whether
they don't need to talk to their
2-3
uncle.
hours. No, they're ready. Right.
They know a good deal, a good opportunity, and they move on it quickly.
Right. Like we had a gentleman, he wants us to bring him deals, but he's not yet even approved to receive funds to buy properties. So how I bring you a deal and you still have to get loan approval and this and that. I mean, compared to somebody that's ready to pull the trigger. He's got the money on the side. He's ready to, if he likes the deal, then he says yes, and within 24 hours, we're opening an escrow.
Right.
There's a huge difference between those two. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's not that it's bad or good. The thing is that if you're going to do something, you have to do the best of it. I was reading an article the other day that, in fact, I took some notes on it. One of the things that it said was, do less better. Don't do so much, but do less things, but do them better. Like do 1 or 2 or 3 things, but do them like spot on.
Quality.
Yeah. And they were interviewing one time Bruce Lee. And, you know, Bruce Lee was a martial arts expert and so forth. And Bruce Lee said, I'm not afraid of the man who has practiced 10,000 different ways of kicking. I am afraid of the man that has practiced one way of kicking 10,000 times. You know, it's interesting. You know, I was reading that and I like
that's a dangerous man.
That's the dangerous man. And Bruce Lee said, you know, that's the guy I fear. The guy that has practiced one way of kicking 10,000 times. Not the guy that's practiced different ways 10,000 times. That guy doesn't scare me.
Wow.
So you do the perfection. And that goes into everything. Whether you're a surgeon, you're an investor, you're whatever business you're in. And there's tremendous opportunities all over the place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it is a complicated law.
Very complicated.
And what I say all the time to our viewers is, you know, these are power moves. We're talking about power moves. These are people that, like this Joseph Fouché, I mean, he's...
You know, one thing on
chameleon to the best.
Oh, yeah. One thing that, you know, Joseph Fouché, just to wrap it up, he ends up, Louis the 18th, the King Louis, ends up coming to power again. They dug up the past of Joseph Fouché. They realized he was an executioner. He had killed a bunch of people that they called him the executioner of Lyon. And
Of Lyon.
Of Lyon. And basically they sent him into exile. And that's where he ends up living his last days. He was forced into exile.
Right.
But one thing in business regarding the third type of time, which is end time, that I learned the hard way, you know, it says you must not be afraid to close. Impress people with your aura of authority and finality. And in business, many times I would go to appointments, and when I was selling life insurance, and at the beginning I wouldn't ask for the close. I just would share the information. Here's how we can help you, blah, blah, blah. And then the meeting would end. And then I would follow up with them and call, and they wouldn't buy from me. But then I started to ask them, is this something that you want to do? And then my sales started increasing. So it's just interesting how we could do every step in the process, but if we miss the third piece, which is to close with finality, like to actually take that action, which is for some people, and for me at the time, it was very, I was scared. Like you said, you were shaking.
Sure.
I was scared to ask for the close.
Yeah, same here. But that's a sign of premature. That's a sign of being new, maybe to a certain
I think
extent.
so.
I remember,
Maybe.
you just reminded me of a memory that I haven't thought of in a long time. I remember I had this very wealthy client, and I was able to establish an appointment at his house, a very luxurious house in the hills of Monrovia. And I took an attorney with me at that time. And this was in the beginning, 38 years ago or something. And I was very green. And we came in on time. We sat down, very professional. We both had our suits. And then the gentleman said, well, how much time do I have to make this decision? And I jumped in and said, oh, there's no rush. Take your time. No rush whatsoever, this and that and whatever. And then shortly after that, we said goodbye and we were outside. And before we got into our cars, the attorney ripped me to shreds. I will never forget it. Okay? He says, let me say this. You were very good, but at the end there, when you said, oh, take your time, this and that and whatever, you didn't put pressure. And you said, you have all the time in the world, and we don't have all the time in the world. This man, something could happen tomorrow. He potentially qualifies today. What would stop us from getting, the program going today? So the fact that you said, take all the time in the world killed the deal. And I think that you should, get better at it and this and that. He let me have it. And he never came out again with me on another appointment.
Wow.
I called him a couple of times. I think he figured, no, you got some learning to do, and I'm not going to...
Was he right?
I believe he was right.
You didn't get that deal?
I never wrote it.
Yeah. You have to put the pressure.
I never wrote it.
It's interesting. Now, when one thinks, oh, you pressure, I think of like a car...
dealership.
car dealership, and they put a lot of pressure. And I don't think you have to necessarily put that amount of pressure, but you do have to test and see, is this person serious? And
because at the end of the day, your time is extremely valuable, and
so is theirs.
And so is theirs.
Yeah.
But this was, it was estate planning and life insurance, so it was something that they needed. They ended up getting it with somebody else. So there was, but the moral of the story is, how do you learn? You learn by doing it. You learn
by that situation.
You learn by jumping in there. You learn by somebody ripping you to shreds, because it wasn't pleasant.
Oh.
And I remember I sat in that car, and he took off, and I was there like 5 minutes sipping it all in and thinking, what a fool I have been. I was tempted to go back in after the attorney left. And say, hey, look, you know what? I told you, take all the time you need. That was a mistake. Because if this is something that you and your family need, you should act upon it immediately. But you didn't. I didn't. But I never got the deal.
But that the pain of not getting that deal is how you learn.
Well, and the pain of getting hit over the head by 2x4 from that attorney.
But maybe that's what you needed at that point. Yeah.
You need to learn. It's like, if you're learning to be an engineer, if you're learning to be an architect, if you're learning,
you gotta get scraped up a little.
You gotta just jump in, do the very best you can, and be a student of life. Learn every day something that makes you tremendous in whatever trade you are, like welders. I was reading about these underwater welders. That is brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal, okay? And, the learning curve can be extensive, and to do a good job, and the responsibility. You don't want those steel things to fall apart. And so the bottom line is, you got to get in there, you got to get dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to throw in? I just am amazed at this person's ability to recognize the prevailing winds, they call it. But there are a couple quotes that I thought I'll just throw in I don't know if you want to throw anything else in, but one of the things was to bet on the reaction that is brewing. So Joseph Fouché was able to see what was brewing up and then place his bet based on that.
Wow.
It's like my brother the other day was telling me he was playing roulette, and the machine was the roulette table had gone like 7 times red, right? You know, you can bet black or red. It had gone 7 times red. And so he kept betting black, thinking, it's going to go black. It's going to go black. Well, he wasn't able to see the prevailing winds. No, but that's roulette. But this individual was placing a bet on his life and what he thought the revolution was going to lead to in France, and he picked right. The other thing that I thought was really cool is patience is your sword and shield.
Yeah. So, you know, you just have to, what is it, become a detective of the moment, because patience can work against you. You know.
How do you know when to be patient?
How do you know when? You know?
That's why I think this law really is extremely complicated. But I think the example that Robert Greene uses of this individual is like a
that man was a genius. Tremendous.
Perfect example.
Well, you know, he was a politician.
Yeah.
And he played everything to the best of. And look, you're talking about a man that lied to the police and sneaked out a window, down a ladder, into a garden, and then stayed in hiding until Napoleon came back. So he was a guy that does something like that. He's just a master of many trades.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. So keep an eye for people like this.
Keep an eye out.
They exist. Anything else you want to know?
No. We're good. It's a complicated law, I think.
For those listening that are enjoying, like, subscribe, because our channel's growing. We're trying to hit to 1,000 subscribers.
Sounds good.
And we're almost there.
We're almost there.
Thank you.